Hello and welcome to Triple Ten's live stream today. We have a really exciting panel to kind of chat about. Our topic today is non-technical roles in the tech industry. So today we're joined by Sky, as most of you know, and Anika as well today, which is really exciting. So I'm going to give everybody kind of a moment to jump on to our live stream and we'll get started here. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to throw them in the chat. We're more than today, so I see that Sky's joining here. Hi Sky, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me all right?
I can. Yes, I can hear you great.
Perfect. I always have my camera set up where like the bottom's kind of covered, so I'm always curious to know if people can hear me. Because sometimes, one time I was doing a live and it came through muffled, so just making sure that voice is coming through clear. And I know Anika's joining today. So for those of you that don't know Anika, I will let herself introduce you to everybody. So Anika, welcome. Do you want to do a quick intro? Your background, your name, like how you kind of
Yeah.
and then we'll jump into our live.
Yeah, sounds good. Just make sure you can hear me all good.
Yeah, perfect.
Yep, awesome. So, hello, I'm coming to you all the way from the other side of the world. Well, I don't know where people are at, but coming to you from Australia. My name is Anika, pronounced Anika, Anika. I don't mind. People say it in all sorts of different ways. A little bit about me. I don't know, like through and through, I'm just like a tech person. Like I don't code, never coded a day in my life, but I just love technology so much. And I have since I was like 12. And I always knew I wanted to work in some kind of technology space where it was like solving creative problems. So that's kind of what I've done throughout my career. I've done lots of different things. I've worked in big companies, I've worked in small companies, I have founded a couple of my own startups. And yeah, now I feel like I do lots of things. I juggle lots of plates, but now I still work at a big tech company based out of Silicon Valley. I get to work obviously from Australia. And then on the side, I do lots of tech content stuff for Triple Ten and then just on my own accounts as well. And yeah, I'm just really, really passionate about getting more females into tech, obviously, but especially non-tech roles because as I mentioned, like I don't code, but like that does not have to stop anyone. And yeah, I'm just hoping to really spread the word about that today. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's a fantastic intro. Anika, like, do you prefer to be called like Anika? Like, how do you actually pronounce your name? Just so I can address you properly.
No, it's all good. I work with a lot of people based out of the United States, so I'm very, very used to it. I say Anika, and I know that sounds strange because like I say it, but yeah, it's my name, Anika. But I honestly, whatever's comfortable, given different accents that people have, like Anika is fine, but think like Anika. That's kind of how I would like write the pronunciation.
Okay, fantastic. I just want to make sure that we're using your proper pronunciation of your name, because I think that's really important. So I'll probably switch back because I've been calling you Anika the whole time just
Yeah,
because
all
of my
good.
accent, but Anika.
Yeah.
We'll work with it. I'll get it. I promise. Well, that's
All good.
fantastic. I'm so glad that you could join us today. I know we've been trying to make this happen for so long. And of course, Sky is here as well. As you all know, she's been joining our live streams for a while. So our topic of the day today is non-technical roles in the tech industry. So we're really excited to kind of jump in. And if you have any questions related to this topic, feel free to throw them in the chat and we would love to answer them today. So jumping right into it. So question number one are, what are some examples of non-technical roles that are essential for the smooth functioning of tech companies? Sky, I'm going to throw it to you first and then to Anika.
So you said what are the non-technical roles that are important to companies?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Anika could probably answer this better than me, but I know there's many roles that don't require like programming. I mean, Anika, you're a project manager, right?
Product manager, and
Product
actually,
manager.
I'm gonna clarify the difference between that for people who might be wondering.
Yes.
But yeah, do you want
Yeah.
me to do a little spiel on non-technical
You might
roles?
be able to, yeah, do that better than me.
Yep, all good. So I was thinking about this, and I think the way that you could split it up is think about non-technical roles in terms of product development. So all of the people who are involved in actually building the app or building the software. because it takes more than just an engineer or engineers. And then you've got all the other non-technical roles that are just part of like running a business. So let's start with the second one because it's a lot easier. So any kind of non-technical role in a business, you can consider like the back office functions, right? Like every tech company needs that. And I think people often forget that. Like tech companies at the end of the day are still just a business. So they need legal, they need finance, they need operations. And yeah, you don't need to know anything about technology for those kind of roles. So I just wanted to mention that because it's a great way to still have your foot in the tech world, but you know, do your legal thing, do your finance thing, or whatever it is, which I don't know a whole lot about. But then maybe more interesting to some of the audience would be non-technical product development roles. So who are the people who are actually like building the, helping to bring the apps and the software and the things that we're building to life? So product managers are the first one, and I'm very biased towards that role. It's very much the world I'm in, and I'd love to talk about that a little bit more later. Then you have product designers, right? You need the people who are actually going to be mocking up and not just making the thing look pretty. Designers do so much more than that, but like actually designing. I would say, yeah, relatively non-technical. And I do want to talk a little bit about like, what does non-technical really mean? But I'll touch on that later. You could also have business analysts. They are probably a little bit more technical than like a designer, but still not fully technical. Then you also could have program managers. They're kind of like, yeah, project managers, program managers, but they kind of help everything to run smoothly and to timeframes and things like that. So yeah, I think you really need most of those roles in addition to like the people actually like building the stuff, which is really what most people are familiar with. So yeah, I'll pause there.
That is honestly fantastic. I feel like that gives the audience kind of a key start metric as to like what we're talking about today, and that was a great overview of some of those key roles. So I'm going to throw this back to Anika, and then I'm going to follow up with Sky. So like, would these non-technical roles that are essential for like companies to like run smoothly, like would you include in that like any, like I know product managers, like that's more on the technical side, but would you also include like the content creators, for example? Like obviously we're a part of the tech company and we have you guys as our technical content creators. So would you like touch on that? Because I feel like Sky can really take that from her angle as a content creator to be like the non-technical roles, even though she's quite technical in like her skill set in a way.
Yeah, am I answering that one first? Was that me? Yeah, I will. Firstly, I totally forgot to mention. Oops, I felt like I just fell over.
Sorry about that.
I totally forgot to mention product marketing, and I can't believe I forgot to mention that. But that's a whole area of its own that falls into non-technical, but very, very important. And I would put content creators, branding. What else is there? Anyone really involved in like getting the brand, the company out there, like external, like the external voice. I think that is hugely important. And I think especially now, like it's been so interesting for me to see how a company like Triple Ten is using or connecting with people in different roles in tech to actually build those relationships with potential customers. I think typical tech companies don't always do that. They take more of like a traditional route where they have salespeople, or they have like a self-service thing online. So yeah, I think content creation, I feel like it's almost like a sales channel now for a lot of companies. So very, very important, and just like marketing as a whole, very, very important.
Definitely. Great overview. Great start. Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad that you kind of introduced us to this topic and jumped into it. So Sky, I'm going to throw it to you from your perspective as like a content creator for a tech company, because technically like in a way a non-technical role that you're taking on, because you're not directly like being a developer on the other side of like actual technical, like you're using your technical skills. So in these non-technical roles like marketing and sales, how do they contribute to the success of a tech company from your perspective as a content creator? I know Anika kind of gave us an intro to that, but I want to hear from your side how you think it impacts it, Sky.
Yes, I think content creators are the most important role in
Mhm.
every company. No, I'm just kidding, but I think they play such a huge role, and especially like within marketing and sales, I think those play such a huge role because they kind of communicate. They're like that bridge between the technical side and the non-technical side, and to the consumer. So they're really important in like kind of communicating to consumers and the people who are actually going to be paying for the service or product why they need it. So, because sometimes like you can be super technical about things, but if you to someone, no one's going to buy your product, or start with your company or whatever. So it's like I feel like the marketing and sales section is extremely important.
Definitely, completely agree with that. It's really interesting. Like, obviously, I feel like we all work within those non-technical and technical roles, like people within both those industries, both indirectly and directly. So I feel like we have a lot of knowledge in this circle to kind of spread about this topic. And it's really interesting because we haven't talked about non-technical roles. We're all about that technical aspect, like AI and software developing and data science, etc. So my third question for us today is, what skills are highly valued in the non-technical roles within the tech industry? So these can be soft skills, these can be hard skills. Like, what skills are you kind of seeing that are evolving that you're like, this is a really important skill to have if you're in the non-technical tech industry? Anika, I'm going to send it to you first.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to answer this in a way that's not like super general and cliche, but it's hard because yeah, I think well, firstly, I think it's going to depend on what role it is, and I can speak a little bit to product managers to start with. Um, as product managers, like I hate to be cliche, but yeah, soft skills are really everything because at the end of the day, as a product manager, interestingly enough, you are responsible for your product, but you are not the one bringing it to life, right? You're depending on so many people to do all of the things that they need to do, but you're the one responsible. So it's kind of strange. You don't have full control. So how do you make sure all of those people are doing what you need them to do? It's the way you communicate with them. It's the way you kind of influence them. Influencing is a really, really big part of product management because you can't directly tell someone what to do. You can't be authoritative over them. So you kind of need to just bring them along and what you do influencing. That's very much a skill of its own. I think another one is around how like communication in terms of every single person you communicate with is going to be slightly different. So the way I communicate with, let's say, an engineer, like the way I might communicate with Sky about a particular thing that I need for a product is going to be very different to how I might communicate with, I don't know, maybe someone in marketing, because I'm just looking for totally different outcomes. So like tailoring communication, I think is really, really important. You can't talk the same way to everyone. So that's like product specific. I think generally speaking for non-technical roles, something that probably is useful is depending on your role, I think it's still really relevant to understand what is happening in the landscape of technology, like the industry, the market and everything. So I think being really adaptable and being able to quickly grasp like new trends, understand like for a marketer, understand AI. You don't need to understand how it works, but you still need to know what it's all about. So yeah, I think still having an awareness and interest and ability to learn about the general industry is really important. What else is there? I'm trying to think of other non-tech roles so that I'd mentioned before. Let's take business, oh no, let's take program managers, for example, right? So program managers are kind of like they run the ship. They make sure timelines are set for really big launches. They'll make sure that risks are managed. They'll make sure everyone is doing their part. So like coordination is really, really important. Communicating effectively to lots of different teams, lots of different stakeholders is really important as well. Being really organized as a program manager is very important. So I could never be one because I'm just not that organized, honestly. Yeah, designers are just a whole other, thing of their own. Like I couldn't speak too much to the design skill set, but I think product designers are going to have their own craft and things that they'll have to be really good at. But they're going to have to really have a way to understand what customers want. And that's kind of like a skill in its own as well. So I'll really say it depends on the role. But I wanted to iterate something or emphasize something that Sky said that I really liked, which is like no one's going to come and use your product if no one knows about it. And like content, and marketing plays a huge part in that. You can go and build something and it could be the most amazing thing ever, but it literally doesn't matter if no one knows about it and you're not telling people it exists. So yeah.
That is so true. That was a great deep dive into that topic. Great answer to that question. Sky, I'm going to pass it to you. Same question. What skills do you find are highly valued in non-technical roles within the tech industry? I don't know if you worked with those individuals, because I know you're still in school. Like, even I guess in school, you're kind of working with those non-technical people if you're working on projects with them technically, or you could take it as a content creator too. So run with that question. Your floor is yours, Sky.
Yeah, Anika covered like so many bases. Usually my go-to like soft skill that I talk about is communication because it's so important. But one thing, if we wanted to go like further, or if people wanted like a specific example, that I've been seeing a lot is not just for content creation, but it applies to content creation. It applies to sales. It even would apply to like just trying to convince somebody of your ideas. But it's just like storytelling. And I've been learning about like specifically for content creation, there's like, every great story has like 3 acts. So you kind of like hook the person in, you tell them the problem, and then you give them a solution. The same thing goes with like everyday communication. It's like the more convincing that you can be, the more connection you can make with someone, the better communication you'll have with them. But yeah, Anika covered like all the bases, and communication is one of my favorite things for any role you could be in.
Definitely. I feel like that's a great soft skill that a lot of people take a long time to learn. So great points there. I totally relate to that. Yeah, spot on, Sky, from Namia, I think, if I'm pronouncing that username. I'm glad we have a couple of product developers in the chat too today. It's really great to see. Awesome. So question number 4 is, can you share some insights on how these non-technical roles collaborate with technical teams to bring the tech product to market? So like if you have any examples, I mean like app developers would be like one, obviously sales and marketing, and then you're working with a developer team. But I'll throw this question to Sky first, and then I'll go back to Anika for this. So just to reiterate the question, if you can share some insights on how non-technical roles collaborate with technical teams to bring tech products to market.
Okay, I'm getting a little nervous because I'm usually it's all technical with me. So, but I know, honestly, I might have to throw this to Anika. I don't quite know the process. I know there's all these different teams and they're all connected and it kind of just goes through a pipeline. But I don't really know how they're all connected. So I'm just here to learn too. A lot of stuff.
Sure. Anika, you're up.
I'm happy to.
Definitely going to take up the product manager type
This
point.
is
Go for it.
Yeah, this is like my I don't know what to call it, like the core of like my jam. My jam. Okay, I wish I had like a whiteboard I could draw on, but basically I think like let's take an engineer, right? Like this is Sky, and then there's lots of Skies because there's lots of engineers in a team, and then usually you'll have typically, let's call them an engineering manager. There will be someone who manages the engineers, right? Heard the group. And then a partner to that engineering manager will typically be a product manager. So it's kind of like, we talk about cross-functional teams in the tech world a lot, and that pretty much means like you've got one team, but they're made up of lots of different people and different roles. So in this case, you've got the engineering manager, you've got the product person. Sometimes you might have a business analyst, you obviously have a product designer as well. So like that's your team. And then that's typically known as like the Scrum team, the development team. And they're the ones like actually building the thing, getting the stuff done. So there's a lot of collaboration, communication, and everything that happens within that team itself, right? So that's like in that bubble. But then there's so many other things that happen outside of that team. And typically I would say the product manager and to some extent the engineering manager, they're going to want to shield the team from being distracted by all of these things outside of the team. Like they've got the tasks that they need to do. And it'll typically be the product person and the engineering manager who are like figuring out all the other stuff that's happening outside. So typically that would mean the product manager will really communicate with everyone and anyone. So on a typical day, for example, I would be talking to someone in product marketing. I would be talking to like design managers. I would be talking to sometimes people on our legal team if we are preparing for a product launch. Sometimes I'll end up talking alongside my engineering partner with someone in security and in architecture. So like think of everything else you need to launch the product. Those two people will typically help to do that. So the team can really focus on like just doing like shipping the product. So yeah, that's kind of how I would explain it. Like I'm trying to like draw a diagram with my hands. Like there's the team, and then there's like all of the stuff that's happening outside. And typically you'll try to communication and everything to those two key people outside the team, and they'll kind of just bring in the information that they need. But you know, I think it's really important also to touch on like it's easy to say communication, but like how do we actually communicate? I think a lot of tools, and maybe Sky, you've got some experience here. There are so many tools that play a big part in how teams work together, especially now that we all work online. So I would say like obviously Slack and or Teams or whatever your communication tool is. Like for me, that's my virtual office. I could not do anything without my Slack. But then there are so many other great tools that are critical for tech teams like Miro. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Miro. It's like the virtual whiteboarding tool, something like that. Maybe it's a Figma or some kind of collaborative digital whiteboard I think is really useful. Obviously, there are tools like Jira, which many developers actually really don't like, but it's kind of what helps the team to manage all the tasks they're working on. And that sometimes is also really useful for people outside the team to understand what is happening in terms of how the product build is progressing. What other tools are there? Can you think of any others, Sky? I'm like forgetting, but there'll be so many more.
Yeah, for communication, I mean, I would say Discord, but I don't know if like companies would use Discord, maybe just personally,
Yeah.
but I don't know, but I do like how you said, because I kind of explained it. I was like, oh, it's like a pipeline where the idea goes through. But I like how you explained that it's almost like more of like a spider web. Like you're like, we're right here, and there's all these different, and it's going back and forth. It's not just going through the pipeline. Like these ideas and tasks are going like jumping around everywhere. So I really like that explanation that helped me like visualize it better.
Yeah, I actually, the pipeline is a really, I think, important thing to touch on as well, because yes, there's like the spider version of it, but then the pipeline version of it is like cycle. And sorry about my hand gestures. This is how I explain things when I don't have a pen. But you know, the product development life cycle, in summary, it's like you go from having this idea to actually launching something, and there's so many things that happen in between. And at every point in that life cycle, there are different people involved. So when you just have an idea, you might not necessarily need engineers to get involved, but you want product people, you want designers, you really want to just be like brainstorming. And then eventually, if you think about those non-technical roles who are ideating, they need to eventually communicate that idea to the developers. And so that's another way to look at it. It's like how you move along that process. And eventually when the development team is done building the product, someone needs to facilitate that being communicated and packaged up with like, let's say the marketing team to actually actually like launch it, create a brand around it, figure out what the pricing is, and, you know, do all the promotion, all the content. So there's that, like, there's kind of like different handovers through that process. So I think that's a really cool way to look at it as well, like that way, and then like the spider way.
Wow, what a great explanation. I'm kind of just absorbing this. This is like new. I haven't really heard of all these different things that you're talking about, and like communication paths too. So it's really interesting to hear about this non-technical aspect. We did get a message in the chat specifically for you, Anika. The question is, would you say that the project manager is the same as the product owner?
So product manager, same as product owner. Okay, so I get asked this question a lot. I think I stopped answering it now for like the last 12 months because it comes up a lot. So all in all, I will say it really depends on how a company decides to label these things. So I think it could be the same thing. It could be just like a renewal where certain companies call it a product owner, others call it a product manager. That's my opinion. But there'll be other people who will say, and I know this because I get very heated comments when I try to explain this. Other people will say, no, they're totally different. And like, not totally different, but like one is very focused on one thing and the product manager is looking after a lot more. Honestly, it just depends on the company. I think the most important thing is like what the purpose of the product role is, which, yeah, whole separate topic, but I think it might, like, if you're looking for a difference, it might just be that as a product owner, you're looking after like one particular feature or one particular product, and really think about how you might level up through your product career. You would maybe move into a product manager role, senior product manager, lead product manager. So you're kind of just like, you have a broader scope of what you're looking after, but essentially there's not like a fundamental difference in those two things.
Great overview. That's fantastic. Great question. I like that we have like another PO or product manager in the chat. I guess they're different according to you, which is awesome. That's a great comment there. But if there's any more questions that come up during this, feel free to drop them. That was a really great question. As Anika gets it all the time.
Yeah, I do.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm glad you could shed some light on it. So the next question I have are, what are some misconceptions people have about non-technical roles in tech, and how can we debunk them? Sky, I don't know if you want to go first on this, maybe from a content creator point of view, or if we want to throw it right to Anika.
I mean, I can throw out some conceptions that I have, and then Anika could like debunk them. But I feel like when I'm thinking about non-technical roles, I mean, obviously you think that everyone like has no technical experience, which I assume is not true, or not true to like, so my conception would be that you don't have technical experience, but maybe like to what level could you communicate with an engineer so that there's not too big of a gap, if that makes sense.
That's huge. That's a really great point. Absolutely. Yeah, let's start to Anika for that. That's a great start. I love that, Sky. Anika, do you want to touch on this a little bit?
Yeah, so funnily, I just made a video on this for the Triple 10 account, which I don't know when it'll be going live, but it was my misconceptions about non-technical roles last week. So look out for that one. I can't remember what I put in it, but I think the biggest thing, maybe it's related a little bit to what Sky was saying, is I think most people think that even if it's a non-technical role, you still need some kind of coding background to really be successful. And that's just not true. It's just not true. Is it sometimes, like, are you at a slight advantage, or are you starting a little bit more ahead if you do have an understanding of more technical things? Maybe, like, it depends on your role. It definitely doesn't hurt, right? It's like if you go and work at a new company and you understand a little bit about that industry, yeah, you're a little bit ahead, but it's definitely not a requirement. So I think that's probably the biggest misconception. It's like, yeah, you could go get a non-technical role, but like really you probably still need some level of coding or technical background, but yeah, not true. And I think the second one, which is kind of related, is that non-technical, well, no, it's not related actually, but that non-technical roles aren't that important, and engineers are like all you need to just get the job done. And I've had so many debates in my videos and comments with people about this, where people are like, no, you just need the engineers to do, like, they can do everything. Yes, we know they can do the building. And look, I'm not discounting that there are engineers out there that are business savvy and creative and could definitely do a lot more. But at the end of the day, if you're running a business, you need people specialized in lots of different things. So I think that's the other misconception. It's like, if you're not an engineer, you're just not that important. And that's just not true. It's just not true. So yeah, those are the two that I would say come to mind.
That is so fair, and I actually that rings very true to me because obviously, like, I'm doing marketing in tech,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
technical experience before I started, and
Yeah.
honestly, like, I feel like I'm thriving in this, even though I know we are having a discussion. Just to give some people about this, we're doing a campaign that's coming up, and it's very technical. And I was trying to pitch this idea, and they're like, "That will not work." It is like from your guys' side, so it definitely does help. I agree if you do know some technical knowledge, but it definitely is not a requirement. And I feel like a lot of people do think that when they're entering the tech world. So
Yeah.
great point. Next question for us. What about highlighting career growth opportunities for individuals pursuing non-technical paths in the tech sector? Sky, I'm going to throw this to you again first.
Yeah, so career growth opportunities. I mean, there's always, as soon as you get your foot in the door, I know for technical and non-technical roles, you can always, work your way up. So I'm sure there's like management opportunities. But I know like Anika's role, like product management is like, so I feel like it's so highly sought after, like so many women who want to get into the tech field, like really they hear about product management and they're like, okay, not too technical, but you're working with people who are technical and it's in the tech space. But maybe Anika can tell us like what other growth opportunities there are, what she's working toward. But yeah, I'm sure there's so many. I mean, tech companies in general, there's always so many opportunities, whether you're in a technical role or
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you just said. Sky, think I'll talk a little bit about like where I'm headed or where I think I'm headed, like who really knows,
I'm
in a
so
little bit.
interested.
Okay. But before that, I thought I would, I'm a very visual person, as you can probably tell. I'm going to do some more hand drawing.
I think
But
we
I
all
think,
are.
yeah, yeah. I think typically in tech, like non-tech or tech roles, it doesn't matter so much. There's typically two paths that you can take in at least larger tech companies. And that is usually a people management, or what do they call it? I think they typically call it like a people management track. And then I think it's typically known as an individual contributor track. And so you can, no matter what role you're in, it could be an engineer, it could be a product person or something else, you can progress, you can technically like move up in your career in two very different ways, basically. So let's take people management as an example, and let's take product roles as an example. So you might start out as a product owner, product manager. You can then work your way up to be like a senior product manager, a lead product manager. These roles and titles and stuff vary company to company. That's kind of like the general gist of it. And then eventually you'll hit a fork in the road where you have to decide, do I want to manage people and do I want to manage teams? Or do I want to continue just to work as an individual and just really focus on the product? I don't want to be distracted by all the people stuff because that honestly is a full-time job of its own. And I think from what I've observed, like different people are suited to the different tracks. If you're really into coaching people, building teams, and like I think managing people and teams is a good way to like move really, really far up, because typically as you get to like really senior positions, your job is basically managing teams. See that for yourself. I think people management track is a good way to go. And then individual contributor track, like I think at some point it does hit like a glass ceiling, because if you're not going to be managing teams, then at some point it's just going to be hard to get to that next level, because you can only really manage or work on like the products and the actual things you're shipping. But those two tracks are quite common. I think, so yeah, generally you could say like leadership in different ways, people leadership or like non-people leadership. And I feel like this applies to engineering roles, product roles, in some way, probably product marketing, program management, like all of the non-technical roles I mentioned, product design. And then what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, right, about me. I mean,
Yes,
I'll keep
I
it
was
very,
just gonna
very
ask you,
short.
like, where do you think you're going? I'm like, I'm waiting for that.
Right. Ooh, I see. Sorry, I just got distracted by this comment by Naima. I want to work on product, hate people. That's funny. And so many people are like that. Oops, hold on, comment box. Okay. So me, look, this could turn into a therapy session.
I
No.
love it.
I mean, look, I think that the biggest takeaway is like you never like you're always figuring it out, right? Like I always thought I wanted to go somewhere in my career, and like every couple of years as I've tried something new, and that's the number one thing I recommend to people is like try lots of stuff if you don't know for sure. You kind of learn what you like and don't like, and maybe the thing you originally wanted isn't what's for you. So, originally I thought, and that when I say originally, I mean like 5, 6 years ago, I thought I want to like climb the ladder. Like I want to be a VP. I want to be like a chief product officer. You know, I want to get to that level. And now I don't really have that desire. So my ultimate goal now, and it is to continue down the so right now I'm a group product manager. I manage three different I manage a product portfolio that's made up of multiple teams, and I've got a few different product managers who report to me. And in having a flavor of this, like you really do get quite removed from doing the exciting stuff. Like you're not doing the building anymore. You're not really launching the products anymore. You're not working with the engineers anymore. Like you're, for the most part, you're managing people. And so that's been really interesting insight for me, and something that I need to think about. Like, do I really want to do that? And so I think what I want to do is continue down the product leadership track, maybe in more of a like a mid-sized company, because then you still have a little bit of exposure to the actual product. You're not just managing people. And then I really want to, for me, I'm a multi-passionate person. So like content creation is still very much a thing, exploring startup ideas, solving problems that I discover. So yeah, it's kind of like a mixed bag, but product leadership wise, it's like product leadership in maybe like a middle-sized company. Sorry, that was not a short answer at
No,
all.
I love it. We love it. Long answers. So I actually have a follow-up question for you. So why did you take why is C-suite not your end goal now? Is it because you just love and are so passionate for product management, or is there another reason behind it? If you want to share, you don't have to.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Honestly, I think, oh gosh, you really got me there. I don't know if I've ever really thought about it, like the why. I think when I see other people, and I think this is the best way you can see if something is for you, is if you can get access to someone who is already doing the thing that you think you want to do. When I see the level of responsibility, probably like the level of complexity and stress, I just feel like nah, that's not for me. I think the like, startup, or if it's my own startup, where I really feel like I have a lot of control, but not C-suite or VP level in a really, really big company, because I feel like from what I've observed, there are just so many factors that are outside of your control. Like at the end of the day, you don't own the company. Yeah, you have a lot of influence, you look after so many people, but like I think for me, I really like having a bit more control. I like being a bit more hands-on, and you really get removed. Like if you've got thousands of people below you, like, you are really removed. So I think for that reason, like I really want to try stay close to the thing that I'm working on. And I think startups and like a slightly lower position is a good way to do that. And it also gives me, for me, I think selfishly, like I really want to maintain time for content creation, even for stuff like this, like connecting with other people and working on other ideas. And you lose time. Like there's not enough time for that. And this is my way of like protecting this time.
That is so fair. I even watching like some of the VPs, just like throughout different
Yeah.
jobs that I've had, it's a way different job than what you imagine that role is going to be. Like it's mostly people managing, and you
Yeah.
are very removed from the product. I guess it really depends, but that startup example is really good. So Sky, I have a question for you. I'm just going to kind of take this off the track a little bit because Anika told us kind of where she wants to go. So I know you're still in school, but like where are you wanting to go with like your degree, your path? Like, are you seeing like that C-suite? Or are you like, no, I would prefer to just stick with what I want, or I'm really passionate about startups. Like I want to know that about you, Sky, because I don't think we've ever talked about that either. Great answer, Anika. I love that. That was such a great like kind of tangent. I love this conversation.
It was such a great answer, Anika. And also, I want to point out, like, I love how you separated, because I've never really known this. I've worked in like plenty of different roles in different companies, but I really kind of saw the bigger picture of like two types of management, the people management and maybe just the department or product management, like soul, like individual. And I always looked at different managers or people higher up in different companies. And I would be like, oh, that's so cool. This person A has 40 people under them. And then person B, like, this is cool because they're getting paid the same, but they just work on their own. And they're like, oh, I'm the head of this department, but it's just me, or it's just two people, me and this person. And I just think that's really cool to point out because you have to think like it's good to know these options when you're thinking about where you want to go and to know that there's like maybe a separation between the two. So I'm learning so much new stuff right now. I should be taking notes, but I don't know, like, I know for sure. So for people who don't know, I'm getting my degree in computer science, just my bachelor's. I've considered getting my master's because I do love being in school so much. Before this, I worked full time for 7 or 8 years. So I love being in school. I think it's like a privilege to be in school and to be learning, and to be just working on myself. So I might end up seeing myself getting my master's for whatever reason. But I don't know what I want to do, honestly. I mean, I think to myself, I want to, work for a tech company. I think I want to work for a smaller tech company, or a startup. Or if I were to work for a tech company, I'm actually like really picky. Like even for internships, I get emails to apply to internships, and if it's not like the perfect job that I want, I don't apply, which is totally bad advice. If you're in college, you should be applying to everything. But I'm just very picky. Like I really want to work on something that's making like a huge impact in the world, in technology and advancements and like quality of life, things like that. I don't really want to work on like a small app that's, like Uber Eats or something. I love Uber Eats, but I don't like that. I don't also like social media. I don't know. So I just ruled out everything I don't want to do. So I don't really know what I do want to do, but I know it involves like the tech space. I know it involves something technical. Even like a lot of people ask me, like they assume on my page that I'm going to be a software engineer or that I want to be a software engineer, which I will be a software engineer. But if I find another role that is like half programming, half, selling or marketing or something, like I would totally take that. Because I just want to keep my options open. And I like Anika said, like I'm very multifaceted. I have so many different interests. So I don't want to narrow something down too small. And I change my mind a lot too. So I honestly don't know where I will end up, but hopefully it's doing something cool.
Definitely. I think that is completely fair. And it's really interesting just to hear like where your path and where you want to take you and like what you're passionate about. And I don't think you're picky. I think you're just like, you know what you want. So, I would phrase it as that because I don't think you're picky. I think that's like amazing that you're like, no, I don't want to do this. I'm not interested in it. Like, this is what I'm going for. This is what I'm passionate about and I'm going to go for it. So,
and I feel like nowadays you can do that. Like you can, I mean, even with content creation, like I know obviously there are other content creators. I didn't invent this, but it almost feels like I just made a job out of thin air. So I kind of take that mentality with like the tech space. Like, if I don't like the options that are the jobs that I'm applying to, I'll just make my own option or make my own company or whatever. Like you can do those things nowadays. There's so many resources and like people are able to just make these new roles out of thin air. I mean, we saw the role of AI maybe 6 months ago now, and there's already prompt engineers who are making $300,000 a year. So, it's very likely in this space that you can kind of do whatever you want.
That is so like amazing. I completely agree. So speaking of AI, we do have an AI question. I'm loving these questions that are rolling in. Is if you have time, do you utilize AI for your day-to-day tasks? So I'll throw it to Anika first, then to Sky, and then we'll jump to our next question. So go ahead.
Yeah. Oh my God. I really wanted to respond to everything Sky just said because I love that topic. Maybe a future, no, maybe I'll park it for now. Maybe a future live stream topic is like the future of careers. Because I actually think, okay, I'm going to have to comment on it a little bit, but I think the future of careers, a lot of what Sky was saying is like people might not actually just have one job, right? Like you might be doing multiple things. And I feel like that's becoming so much more common, especially with people working remotely and people balancing side hustles and companies offering 4-day work weeks, which means you really can do something on the side. And I'm so excited about that topic. So yeah, anyway, we can talk about that later. Also excited about AI. I am literally in the process of making a video about how I started using AI in the last few weeks. So I didn't really take ChatGPT too seriously in the first couple of months. And then I realized I have to kind of force myself to take it seriously or I'm going to get left behind. And so what I did is I downloaded the ChatGPT app and I put it on my home screen of my phone. So like it's always there. And so I'm more likely to use it. So that's a little hack if you forget. And then I also pinned it to all of my browser tabs. So it's always there. And so I actually got into a pretty good habit in the last couple of weeks of just using it. And the biggest thing I have been using it for is in terms of like my role is for both content creation and product is one for ideation and like soundboarding. If I have an idea, it's a fully formed idea or maybe just a little something, like I will tell it to like help me shape that idea more. So that's been really good. Like when I don't have someone next to me, I can ask. That's kind of been my go-to. And the second thing, which is probably the biggest way I've been using it, is just rephrasing stuff. So the way I'm thinking about it is I'm trying to save my brain power into like and just focusing on like the important things that I want to say, but not putting too much effort into exactly how I say them or how I write them. And I kind of dump my thoughts into ChatGPT and I'll get it to phrase it for me in a much, much better way. And I have been rephrasing stuff like constantly. And it's almost getting to a point where I can't write something that I don't get it to rephrase, which is maybe bad. But yeah, it's just been so good at polishing things. And, you can spend so much time, like in product roles, you do write a lot of documents, you do review a lot of documents, and you're writing a lot of stuff. And it takes so much time to like perfect the thing you're writing. And if I can save time doing that, that's been the biggest way in which I've used it.
Definitely. I think that's a really great way to use AI. Sky, do you want to go ahead and answer that as well? Like how you're using it?
Yes. Well, I love the way that you said that you're using it to rephrase so you can like save your brain power, because I feel like that's exactly what AI is going to be doing in like every field. Like before we had calculators, we would have to do these, computations by hand or in our head or, all written out. And now it's like we are able to focus our time on way bigger proofs and theorems because we have calculators to do the hard work. So I feel like that's what AI is going to do, and I'm like really excited for it. And then what I've specifically been using AI for that isn't like totally technical, since we're talking about like non-technical roles and everything. So in my classes, I am taking a technical class on data structures and algorithms, but to basically like teach me whatever I need it to do. So if I'm reading the textbook and I don't understand the example that they gave or the way that they're describing something, I'll have it re-describe it to me. I'll have it give me examples, and I'll even have it like, what do I normally do? I'm trying to think of ways that I use it. I have like a lot of these like tricks that I do, but it basically just helps explain anything that I need it to explain to me. And then, even like questions that I would have for my professor, like if my professor, because we all know like professors don't explain things very well. Sometimes they've been teaching a course for 30 years and they just give up, so they're just like, here, do it. So I'll have it, I'll give it like, maybe, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this. So just hypothetically, I'll give it the instructions that my professor gave me and just say like, if I have a question, what does this mean? Instead of emailing the professor, because it kind of is, the same thing. It saves me time. So I use it for that. And then, I use it like every single day. I think it's funny, Anika, that you said you had to kind of force yourself to use it, because I'm like, the second I figured out what it was and I was reading about it, I was using it on my phone and I'm like, I can't live without this now. Like I would dream and think of things to ask AI and just to see what it would say. So I was like all about it, but I do know like other, new tech things like IDEs that come out. I have that feeling I have to force myself to use it, because if I don't learn how to use it, I'm going to get left behind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I basically just use AI for everything.
That's fantastic. I feel like everybody thinks that, and it's shown through history. And I know, Sky, we've talked about this in previous live streams, is new tech is always scary until it becomes adapted into like day-to-day use. And like the calculator, for example, I bet people are terrified to use it. So it's definitely a learning ability. People are, you know what, it's going to be a tool. Like you are going to get left behind. Like might as well start using it now. And you guys are setting yourself up for success. So I think that's fantastic. Those are two really great ways that you guys are using AI in your day to day, and with great examples. So thank you so much for sharing those. I think we might have time just for one more question, just because our answers have been long but fantastic. I want us to keep that energy going to the last one. So I know I had sent our panel out the questions before. So we have questions 7 to 10. We kind of touched on 9 already. I'm curious to know if there is a question in there that you guys want to be asked for your last question. I have one in mind, but I want to hear from you two first, as you guys are the ones answering them.
I think that since we're all females here, I feel like the diversity and inclusion question could be quite good. Is that the one
Well,
you were thinking?
yeah, I was thinking that exact one because I know that you wanted to join the Women in Tech panel, and
Yeah.
we couldn't do that. We couldn't make it work. So let's dive into that. We can kind of maybe. I know this is going to come up, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. And
Yeah.
Anika, you're going to start us off. So diversity and inclusion are critical, obviously. How do non-technical roles contribute to creating a more inclusive tech industry? Go for it. I'm excited to hear this answer.
Yeah, so I haven't prepared for this answer whatsoever. But I think what I would say is non-technical roles aside, like I think it's relevant to every role in tech. I think the best way I can explain why it's important is when you think about, it's an example. So if you think about someone using a product, right? Let's say it's an app, let's say it's a TikTok app or whatever app you want to use, even if it's, let's say it's a triple 10 boot camp, someone's going to be using it and going through it. If you don't have different perspectives involved in designing that product, then you are not going to be able to successfully appeal to the different types of people who might use it. So if you just had an engineer, like let's say you just had a male engineer, I don't know, in their late 30s, build like this thing, how does that person know what someone like myself or Sky or you, even Olivia, like what's going to appeal to us, or how our brains work, and whether putting this button here or designing it in this way is right for us. So I think, I know it's a very, very basic example, but like you could take that to a whole to another level and really think about, if you don't have different perspectives, and this is not about females alone, this is about different ways in which different people think and the previous experiences they've had, the previous like life experiences as well as work experiences, different roles that they've had before. All of these things contribute to the perspective someone has. And because building a tech product involves, again, like I said, a cross-functional team with so many different roles, you need all of those different roles to bring different perspectives to actually create the best user experience for the thing that you're building. And so, sometimes like I like to kind of take we can still talk about the female and woman in STEM part of it, but sometimes I like to remove that part of it, because I think sometimes there's a perception where it's like, well, we're saying females should be in tech just because they should be. And no, like if you objectively look at what you're building and who's going to be using it, it makes sense to have a lot of different people help bring that to life, because yeah, you want lots of different types of people to use that thing. So yeah, that's my first point, but I'll flick it over to Sky and then I have more stuff to say, so I'll come back to me.
Love it. Go ahead, Sky.
I feel like I love the way that Anika like phrased that. I thought of like a totally different side of it. So I feel like for technical roles, who's creating more? Yeah, I feel like having more diverse people in these tech or non-technical roles, because not what I think of is not everyone thinks this way. Not everyone line and is able to be like the engineer or the software engineer, like the programmer, and think that way. Like other people could be super creative, and it's really important to have those people in different roles like UI and UX, and to have designers and have all these like non-technical roles. But like Anika was saying, like you can't market something to just from your perspective. It's good to always get like that feedback, and then to have those different people to kind of help you like with their perspective.
Definitely, because everybody has different shared experiences and they're going to have different ways that they're using your product that maybe you wouldn't have thought of. So, Anika, I'm going to throw it back to you. Great answer, Sky.
Yeah.
And you can finish with your last point to close us out for the night.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this one, look, it's a little bit more on the personal side. And it's something I've experienced or I'm experiencing, but I think it's something a lot of females in tech face. So I want to talk about it. Maybe it's another future topic for a whole live stream, but I think just purely in terms of being a female in a mostly very male dominated environment, I think like it's tough. And you could have the most supportive male colleagues. Like I've always worked with amazing male counterparts, you know, through my entire career, including now. But at the end of the day, sometimes I end up in a Zoom meeting or I end up in the room and I look around and I'm like, I'm different. And I don't know what, like, you know, it's just when you look around, you kind of want to see at least one person who's like comment like similar to you in some way. And yeah, I've found that to be one of the biggest challenges in my career. I don't think it's ever like held me back or anything like that, but it's something that I'm really aware of and conscious of. And, you know, every time we're hiring new people, so I've worked in a lot of tech companies that are going through like hyper growth. So we're hiring and hiring and hiring, and you just don't see females applying. And like that's the biggest thing. Is it actually the fact that tech companies aren't placing women into roles, or is it that goes back to the fact that women sometimes just don't put themselves out there to apply for something, which we hear a lot, right? Like unless you think you meet like 99% of the criteria, you're not going to apply. And I really think that's a thing. So yeah, I think that's something that, look, I don't have an answer. This is just like a point I wanted to make is I think in terms of diversity and inclusion, I think just sort of the environment that you're in terms of feeling supported, in terms of having shared experience with someone else who is like you is really helpful as well. Because I can give you a really specific example from my side. Sometimes it's really hard for me to speak up, especially if I'm in a physical room surrounded by all males, and with like being in more of a leadership position, it's like, and also like, you know, I'm like 5'6", and sometimes you've got these guys like towering over you, and like there is a bit of a weird like dynamic that comes with that, and it's maybe some of it's in my head and it's something I'm working through with. I've got a career coach that I'm working through with her, but I think this is something a lot of females probably face, and like I don't think we talk about enough, and I think just for that reason alone, like we need more of us.
That is a great point, and I like that you pulled on your shared experience, because probably it's you're not alone in that either, and I'm sure that other people either watching this now or are going to watch it in the future and be like, I also had that same experience. So it's nice to see that you're not just alone there. So thank you for sharing that. This has been such a lovely conversation with both of you. It's been
fun.
Sorry, the sun's going down.
It's all right.
It's been such a great conversation, and I feel like I've learned a lot. I feel like everybody's learned a lot, and it's kind of inspiring to have all ladies on and kind of talk about tech, because I feel like there's a couple of select groups, like I know Baddies in Tech is one of them, and they're all about women in the tech space, but we don't really talk about stuff. But it's really nice to come on and have these conversations, even about non-technical roles. So thank you so much both for joining us. I realize we are not at our usual time tonight, and I didn't tell our audience that, so I apologize. But thank you so much for joining, everybody, and we hopefully will be back here soon. And I wanted to, is there any last thoughts from anybody before we jump out of here for tonight?
It was so fun to have this live with you, Anika. Thank you for joining.
You too.
And I hope we can do this again, like all ladies. And
Me
you never know,
too.
some girl out there might be watching this or might watch it in the future and be like, I had no clue, like a female who looks like me maybe could be a software engineer or a product manager or something like this. So we could definitely inspire so many people.
Totally agree.
Well, thank you both so much, and we'll see everybody next time. Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye.